Chapter 3 and 27, both releasing ultimate moves, editor Kurisu. The nine-eyed beast wolf could not tolerate that a mere gushing spring-tier human dared to covet its body. Die! It pounced once more, its claws whipping down toward Ling Han. Ling Han did not dare meet it head-on. Instead, he kept shifting his figure, circulating the indestructible heaven scroll to mend his wounds. One in the spiritual ocean tier could manifest their martial intent, so if he was struck, the opponent's martial intent would also seep in through the wound, slowing recovery and even invading the consciousness, shattering the spirit. The nine-eyed beast wolf was a king, and its martial intent was even fiercer. Ling Han immediately felt it unbearably cruel, as though countless vicious wolves were gnawing into him. With the indestructible heaven scroll already in motion, the nine-eyed beast wolf's martial intent instantly dissolved spotlessly, like snow meeting scalding water. Ling Han could not help but let a smile show. This was because the indestructible heaven scroll's level was too high. Once it was activated, it could wipe away the nine-eyed beast wolf's martial intent. This was suppression from a higher level. It was indeed a lost art that even he had spent 10 millennia to learn, its might unshakably solid. Puppy, obediently become my rations. Ling Han laughed loud and swung his sword as he moved. Yet after only a few exchanges, he was sent flying by the nine-eyed beast wolf. Blood poured without cease, but since the demon birth sword was terrifyingly sharp, the nine-eyed beast wolf would also bleed even from the lightest graze. In theory, the injuries they suffered were on entirely different levels, and Ling Han would certainly be the one to die of grievous wounds as time dragged on. Yet he had the indestructible heaven scroll in hand, and his wounds could heal at once. Furthermore, the demon birth sword was a 10th tier weapon and carried martial intent, even if it was not resuscitated, so it could still threaten a spiritual ocean tier beast. Thus the nine-eyed beast wolf would keep bleeding, though not by much. The longer it went on, the more severe the damage that bleeding would inflict. Ling Han was aiming precisely for this. He brandished the demon birth sword and took out a ginseng, and without the slightest caution, simply munched on it like a carrot. If someone were to see it, they would certainly scold him for squandering fortune. This was a 100-year-old ginseng. How could he waste it like this? Ling Han did not care in the least. To others, this was a 100-year-old ginseng, but to him, it was truly no different from a carrot. There were plenty inside the Black Tower. Besides, it had been a few days since he departed from the Fallen Moon Gorge, and these ginsengs were 10 years older with even better effects. Ginseng was a great tonic, so he was fine with its support despite the profuse bleeding, or rather, he was at least far better off than the nine-eyed beast wolf. As they fought, the nine-eyed beast wolf clearly realized this and instantly went berserk. Its attacks became even more ferocious, seeking to kill Ling Han in a single blow. "Ha ha! Although you are a king, I'm not too shabby either." Ling Han activated the demon birth sword, and 7 flashes of sword chi streaked across, declaring that he too was a king among humans. However, there was still a vast tiers gap between them after all. The nine-eyed beast wolf completely held the upper hand, and Ling Han could only parry its attacks. "Sigh! I've been smacked in the face!" Ling Han mocked himself, yet no one would laugh at him for this, only admire him greatly. The nine-eyed beast wolf was a king among beasts, and with the advantage of an entire great tier, it should have absolutely crushed him. The result was utterly inconceivable. Ling Han knew his own limits. It was not that he himself was strong enough, but that he possessed the indestructible heaven scroll, granting him the ability to entangle with it. Otherwise, he would already have been annihilated by the nine-eyed beast wolf. How could an art that required 10 millennia to comprehend not be powerful? He also possessed the demon birth sword, and a large number of 100-year-old ginsengs, which gave him enough confidence. Without either of these conditions, perhaps he could protect himself, but he would be incapable of harming the nine-eyed beast wolf. He still had not used the mysterious 3000, because he was not certain whether this strike could annihilate the nine-eyed beast wolf. If this beast wolf suffered a great loss, it would certainly retreat, and with its speed, Ling Han could not catch up, Thus, he absolutely had to wait for the most opportune moment to unleash the mysterious 3,000. After a long battle, the nine-eyed beast wolf finally revealed a trace of weariness, and viciousness flashed through its eyes as every hair on its body stood on end. Its 9 eyes fired lightning at the same time. It's unleashing its ultimate move! Ling Han immediately turned solemn. 9 bolts of lightning struck simultaneously from different directions, sealing all his routes of escape. Moreover, he could at most block 2 bolts. This was an ultimate move unleashed by a spiritual ocean-tier beast king. How could it be easy to withstand? Can't block it, I can only dodge. Waiting for the instant the lightning was about to strike his body, Ling Han entered the Black Tower, then immediately came out. Entering and exiting so fast it was almost imperceptible. The lightning had already surged past him. He smiled faintly. Though he had an unfair advantage, he did not want to be scorched tender on the inside and crisp on the outside. Besides, there was a vast gap between his cultivation and the nine-eyed beast wolf's. Fighting head-on was unfair to him. The nine-eyed beast wolf's eyes showed bewilderment. How did this human dodge its ultimate move? It should have been absolutely impossible. It had accurately calculated Ling Han's speed and sword-wielding ability, so this should never have happened. If it could open its mouth to speak, it would definitely have demanded an answer by now. Little wolf dog? You definitely wouldn't know, so just submit obediently without putting up a fight. Ling Han laughed loudly. The Black Tower was his true trump card. The nine-eyed beast wolf's hairs rose again. Pa, 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 pa! 9 bolts of lightning slammed down violently again. Ling Han used the same old trick, entering and exiting the tower, easily avoiding the beast wolf's ultimate move. He revealed an exultant expression, for an ultimate move like this, used repeatedly, would be a heavy burden for the nine-eyed beast wolf. The moment when he could unleash the mysterious 3,000 to end the battle was drawing ever nearer. However, as a king, the nine-eyed beast wolf naturally was not stupid. Seeing that its ultimate move was useless, it no longer used it. Instead, it continued to tangle with Ling Han. As the fight dragged on, its aggressive stance weakened, not because its body could not endure, but because it lost patience. As a beast, it was violent, bloodthirsty, and proud, but at the same time, it lacked patience. In a drawn-out battle, it still could not take down its prey, and its injuries were also not light. It made it finally conceive the thought of retreating. Ling Han could not help but frown. He could clearly tell this, so he had to grit his teeth and unleash his ultimate move, or else this Beast King would truly run away. The mysterious 3,000. He had kept waiting to release it after accumulating enough power, so the ultimate move erupted the instant he willed it. 800 sword lights shot forth without reservation, yet did not transform into black-armored warriors like last time. Evidently, Ling Han needed to step into the spiritual ocean tier. Such a miraculous effect might only have been produced under the Black Tower's power boost, requiring Ling Han to cross into the spiritual pedestal tier to display that move's power again. Even so, 800 sword lights was still terrifying beyond measure, blotting out sky and sun, with only 5 coloured sword lights pouring down upon the world. The nine-eyed beast wolf revealed intense fear. This sword technique's might was too overwhelming, making even it feel anxiety, yet at this moment it could only receive it head-on. Chapter 328. Analysis Translator Reviter Kurisu. Sword radiance flooded the firmament, filling the heavens from end to end. The might of this ultimate move had long since surpassed Ling Han's own tier, so much so that even a king among beasts like the nine-eyed beast wolf did not dare show the slightest carelessness. In an instant, all the hair on its body bristled as though struck by fear, and from its 9 eyes, bolts of lightning burst forth at the same time. The 9 streams converged into one, knitting together into a thick electric arc that tore through the air and blasted straight toward Ling Han. To seize bandits, seize the chieftain. If Ling Han were erased, then the force of this move would naturally scatter and disperse on its own. That lightning, too, was the nine-eyed beast wolf's ultimate move. Shoo, shoo, shoo. Sword radiance shrank, surging forward to meet the lightning head-on. Pa! 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 The sword lights were extinguished one after another, yet at the same time the lightning contracted at a terrifying speed. Each sword light was equal to Ling Han's full-powered strike, though a single one was not enough to clash directly against the nine-eyed beast wolf's full-strength blow. There were sword lights in countless succession. With each sword light crashing into it, the lightning was finally pared down until it was no thicker than a spider's thread, and at last it vanished completely. At this moment, only 300 sword lights remained. Hong! The nine-eyed beast wolf had already unleashed its ultimate move. It was impossible for it to follow up with yet another at once. It could only raise its claws to guard its head. 300 sword lights struck in succession, and the fierce collisions instantly erupted into bursts of blinding brilliance. Ling Han collapsed to the ground. He had truly poured everything into that strike just now, drawing out every last wisp of origin power within his body. If this still could not kill the nine-eyed beast wolf, then he could only hide within the Black Tower, wait for his origin power to recover, and then come find this Beast King again. Fortunately, the nine-eyed beast wolf lay sprawled upon the ground with fresh blood continuously gushing forth. Its chest rose and fell faintly, a sign that it still lived. Magnificent. After receiving the mysterious 3000 head-on, it was merely heavily wounded. Ling Han was stirred to the core, yet a fierce dread also rose within him toward the Heaven's Sword sect. Just what kind of power was that sect to possess such a terrifying ultimate move? Too shocking. Even with his experience from the Heaven tier, it was still exceedingly difficult to wield this sword art. Moreover, the power of this sword art was tied to sword chi, and not everyone could cultivate it to such an appalling degree. Previously, when Ling Han forced out 700 sword lights, he had already guessed that the mysterious 3000's extreme should lie at sword chi's consummation. In theory, a martial artist could cultivate until they formed 10 flashes of sword chi, yet there were still geniuses who cultivated 11 or 12 flashes. Thus, if a single flash of sword chi could evolve into 100 sword lights, then in theory one could cultivate 29 flashes of sword chi, assembling the full 3000. The first form was sword chi, so sword ray should initiate the second form. Sword ray was sword chi extrapolating in this fashion, and the third form, breaking limits, could only be used when one grasped sword heart. The third form corresponded to 3 different stages in the way of the sword. That the Heaven's Sword sect could stand tall for 10 millennia without collapsing was indeed not without reason. Senior brother Jian Cheng, the battle ahead suddenly stopped. Could they have fought it out? A voice drifted over from afar. Hey, battling so fiercely, we must go see just who it is. Another voice sounded. Shh! Ti! Ling Han hurriedly gathered his thoughts and struggled to rise. He had only exhausted all his origin power. His physical strength was still intact. He staggered to the side of the nine-eyed beast wolf, lifted it up, and with a single thought, shoo, he entered the Black Tower. In the next instant, 2 figures arrived at almost the same time. They were 2 youths, only 24, 25 years old, both handsome, confident, and extraordinary. As for their cultivation, one stood at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and the other was shockingly at the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Ha! How come there's no sign of anyone? The purple-clothed youth said. The other youth, in blue, lowered his gaze, surveying the traces left by the battle, and said, The battle just now was not between 2 people, but between a person and a beast. Senior brother Jian Cheng, how so? The purple-clothed person asked. The youth in blue let out a smothered laugh and said, There are claw marks everywhere. Can't junior brother Yue tell? The purple-clothed person laughed as well and retorted, Couldn't it possibly be one person who used a claw-type weapon? It's certainly possible. The youth in blue nodded. He then pointed to the ground and said, However, there are still several footprints here, enough to prove that one side was a beast. Couldn't it be possible that 2 people battled, and one brought their pet beast? The purple-clothed person seemed to delight in nitpicking. The youth in blue laughed and said, The footprints that belong to a human look exactly the same. Don't you tell me that the 2 people were wearing the exact same shoes and their sizes are exactly the same. Under this rebuke, the purple-clothed person paused, then muttered, Could it not be possible? This seemed to be his favourite expression. From the traces of destruction, the battle prowess of the person and the beast were quite astonishing. The youth in blue no longer spoke sarcastically to his companion and instead examined the battle traces with seriousness. His expression turned stern as he said, "This battle prowess is at least 9 stars." 9 stars? The purple-clothed person was slightly shaken and said, "Senior brother Jian Cheng, not to mention the people in the current exam, there aren't many spiritual ocean tier practitioners that possess 9-star battle prowess, even in our Winter Moon sect." A youth in blue nodded and said, "There certainly aren't many, but not too few either, at least several hundred. Who exactly was it that came here to battle with a beast? Ha! Ha! This blood!" His expression changed in shock. There were great quantities of blood left by the 9-eyed beast wolf, and within the traces there were glowing crimson-coloured lines of fabric. Since the blood itself was red, if one did not look closely, one would truly overlook it. He thought of a possibility and cried out abruptly, "The 9-eyed beast wolf!" "What?" The purple-clothed person also showed a shocked expression. "I certainly heard that there was a 9-eyed beast wolf roaming around here, but the spiritual pedestal tier experts have searched for it, and even flower blossom tiers swept over with their awareness, but they all found nothing at all." "It should be it. This blood can't deceive me," the youth in blue said, a smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Interesting, interesting. One who could battle so fiercely with the 9-eyed beast wolf. Such a person is a worthy opponent. "Ha ha, even you as one of the 7 sons of the Ao family feel the urge to battle," the purple-clothed person laughed loudly. The youth in blue, Ao Jiancheng, revealed an arrogant expression and said, "What's so interesting about bullying the weak? If I battle, I'll battle geniuses. Only stepping on geniuses is pleasurable enough." "Ha ha, senior brother Jiancheng. The one I'm most impressed with amongst the 7 sons of the Ao family is you, and that is precisely because you possess a strong cultivator's desire for battle," the purple-clothed person said. Ao Jiancheng smiled faintly, yet the arrogance on his face did not fade as he said, "Let's go, there's nothing left to see here." The two had come swiftly and departed just as swiftly. Inside the Black Tower, Ling Han's expression turned hostile. This guy was actually Ao Feng's son.